Yeah, I just want to make a quick note here because I'm thinking about something, and I don't know if I'm going to finish it, but it's that song that's I think I'm not sure when it actually was released. I think maybe in the early '70s. I'm not sure if it goes back any further, um, at all. But anyway, it's the Wild Thing song, but it's something about that and just something I was thinking about the Wild Thing. Da, 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 da. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Wild Thing. I think I'm gonna tell someone else. Da, 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 da. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, I'm thinking about just something else other than that. But something about the song and what I've been thinking about as far as like just something in that way. I was thinking about the barometric altimeter condescending residuals in that way because some of the words using the same thing about the song Wild Thing is a little bit of a different perspective based upon content and it seemed to be in a way I was referring to Saturn sky. Um, Saturn sky unrings and the thing about the HTTP colon double forward slash and the thing about the Austin Powers Bluebonnet Imperial Eagle that way, and the oldest governmental computer mainframe. I say that several times, and I want to make that clear so people who really don't um, know it's a computer mainframe. Anyway, it's like the oldest governmental computer mainframe is called the Whopper. Okay. Well, anyway, yeah. So I mean, like all this, like it gets to like the association thing about quite a bit about the Burger King thing and the Imperial Eagle as far as the crown goes and all that. But anyway, it's kind of like the Ohio Silver deal about that. It's not necessarily that it has to be like the flag deal. Pretty much maybe that and maybe what it means to go through a circuit with like you know what NATO means to Geneva, Switzerland, or you know yeah. So I mean I don't know if I would really call it maybe a San Jacinto monument in a way of you know what a monument is or what a memorial would only suggest. Um, Distinguishable difference of considerable amount. There seems to be really the deal about the San Jacinto Monument is like it's like really elevated. I don't know how tall it is, but it's like pretty high up in the air in the sky. I would say probably close to maybe 100 feet. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it at this point, considering everything I've really been looking at. It might be somewhere around there. I'm not sure. I think I'll look when I get it. But anyway, I just like to think about that in the Saturn sky in a way of the humor of onion rings. A little bit about the onion rings, about um, the awesome powers. Not that it has to be humor. I mean, but it's really some brains about it for real. But anyway, the awesome powers, Bluebonnet Imperial Eagle that way, and how HTTP colon double forward slash is, even more a little bit more of a color code of night vision. I went through all the way through the Abraham Lincoln night vision deal about staying in the dark, and through Richard Nixon and the peace and that representing the two V twin getting beyond the semiconductor thermal semiconductor to the conductivity the conductor of like a ambidextrous factors of anatomy in that way. But yeah, and the same what a thermal semiconductor in a way representing the one really suggesting that it's almost like the power squared. That there really should be two, or the eye on the backside really of the backside of the U.S. $1 bill. What that means normally with like a reference that I've been using quite a bit here lately is like a peripheral toss of panoramic academia. Like 180 degree panoramic thing about the degree itself of 180 degrees, or the alphanumeric thing about the practical application of a telepathic answer that way. Yeah, it seemed to be like the deal about the power square. But anyway, it's kind of like I was like thinking about the Saturn with the rings as compared to the onion rings. And a little bit of humor about the yes, and please your response. Yeah, I'll buy Val. Yeah, some stuff about that I've been thinking about quite a bit because it's amazing how true it is about certain factors of humor that I mean distinguishable from a joke or in a way that's really humor itself, not really you know um an approach as um you know, or using, anyways, it's the humor of the brains about, the content of that way. In any case, so and it seems to be so very much the answer so many times that like thoroughly, puts it right into place, and where it's at, and yeah. So I've been thinking about that. So like as far as like the humor about the not that it has to be humor, or, but it seems to be like the real deal about the thing about the colon. Um, sem, Not semicolon, but yeah, that's the point about the colon semicolon as compared to like would be like referencing like the deal about the thermal semiconductor, um, and what that really is, as far as like a degree, as far as like placement of like temperature as compared to Celsius, and as compared to like Fahrenheit, and what that is to normal standards of whether it used to be an option of only Fahrenheit, or the availability that's like real like available like virtually everywhere now is like the option and compatible with both of the Celsius and the Fahrenheit, the deal about that, and it really gets to the power squared. I mean, it's like symmetrical, asymmetrical. That many people, even when I was like using the thing about symmetrical, asymmetrical, um, the power square, I mean, didn't even click as connectivity. I mean, really at all. I mean, it's like when like symmetrical, asymmetrical factors were involved. I mean, it's like it was never like suggested as the connectivity. I mean, it's almost like the thought of like it's all there, but it's like it's not recognized as that. It's like why a patent is not a copyright, or quite a bit, or why the Fifth Amendment is like not a nonprofit organization, or why Bitcoin is not cryptocurrency. I mean, for real. So it's kind of like focusing on that about a barometric altimeter, condensing residuals about the Saturn sky as compared to Saturn being outer space, and likewise Saturn sky. It's like a smaller version of the Corvette, and all that in the sky, and what that means in like re-entering heaven, like thing. And there's like a lot of information I've been really looking at, because as far as like network operations go, the balloon, the hot air balloon, okay, it's like the book Orion Performance Monitor, and the book with the cover with the hot air balloons on it is, I mean, the book anyway. But the thing about it is that the hot air balloon, based upon temperature change, really virtually in any setting, but the hot air balloon being, the picture, presents, the mandatory requirements for, needed for, a rainbow. I mean, it's amazing the temperature change and all that with a hot air balloon. I mean, has all that, and it really is comparable. I mean, if it really is comparable, to condensation and humidity based upon temperature change, or what that is in the air. Well, the hot air balloon, represents like that in the air, plus condensation and humidity in the way of like temperature change. I mean, which is still, demanded requirements of the rainbow itself. Even the mist and the way the light is projected based upon, sometimes the concentration, as well as, the factors of temperature. Yeah, so I mean, like all that's like a factor. So anyway, I thought that was like really cool, and I was thinking about quite a bit, like the awesome powers about the Hio Silver, beyond my thing about the oh, you just woke up and decided you're gonna be a Christian rock star, and it's like, oh, it's because my toll is white, right? And it's the deal about Fred Flintstone, the Power Square thing about the color code, and the factor of HTTP being like 64, and like car being 22. And the two TOON being 64, and all the connectivity, between the operator being 0 and 64 and Zion and all that stuff. Okay, so like it gets to like the operator being the alphanumerics, likewise of its own word, like 108 and all that stuff. Well, anyway, I was like looking at that because in network operations, I'd been around networking involving mainframes at different locations, as well as part of what I was involved in another position that would actually reflect, being at the same place for a different reason, but all that's like there anyway, So anyway, so like it's kind of like around certain phrases, and that was like one of them that was like directed, and I remembered that it's about the condensing residuals. I mean, it's like the barometric altimeter of condensing residuals, and I mean it almost seems to be like the plateau of like for mountain's majesty. you know, kind of like the plateau at the same time, like a barometric altimeter, like it is with like a equilibrium, or that represents equilibrium in the way of G-force as far as like a pilot goes. And normally G-force is a factor in that way, you know, giving some feeling of G-force and equilibrium based upon G-force and, you know, what it is to a plane horizon that way, or what horizontal is, or what feels like horizontal, because of, you know, G-force applied to, you know, something other than a flat plane, you know, horizontal plane, you know, surface. Yeah. So anyway, so I was thinking about that barometric altimeter and certain factors that way of like what would represent maybe even the equator or the for Purple Mountain's majesty. I mean, in my mind, it's like it's automatically the deal between you know, a plateau. Um, Not necessarily, you know, the mistletoe thing, or, you know, like, you know, or the hood ornament, you know, perfecting accuracy, you know, or like the Lincoln deal about the rectangle, okay? And it seems to be like the big deal, you know, that I focus on, but, you know, going from the Lincoln Continental and the rectangle, and a 1992 map. I mean, it's kind of like the night vision of Abraham Lincoln, the Lincoln Continental that way. You know, I'm thinking, I hadn't even looked really, but, you know, Lincoln, you know, rearranging the letters and its pronunciation, it ultimately gets to Kennel, okay, and Colonel. And like, we've really been thinking quite a bit, you know, about the computer programming, the computer language of, you know, the computer programming of like the architecture and platform, you know, and the picture of the cover on the book, and I think it's for the architecture that it's the lizard. I'm virtually certain that it's the lizard on the architecture and the platform. You know, as far as Python goes, I'm actually trying to, I'm actually really trying to place the actual exact thing about platform and Python, to, you know, thoroughly, you know, decide if it's going to be like, you know, just an attachment or, you know, versatile in the way of interchangeability. And so I'm going to kind of wait on that right now. But anyway, it's kind of like also with the embedding encryption that way. But like the barometric altimeter condensing residuals was almost like, you know, the equator at the same time. Or what that means to, you know, be on the front lines of the beachfront, or, you know, the Deep Star 6 thing. So I was kind of like thinking about network operations in certain places that I'd been, and I'd heard something about that used in networking as a and, you know, now it's like the book cover. And when I realized certain factors about you know cover charge and you know the weekend thing about, you know, what performing in a club or going to a club on weekends was. And really, I don't go to clubs at all anymore, really, for, God, 25 probably years. But anyway, my thing about it was back then, it's like always hearing the thing about the cover charge, okay? And I had absolutely no idea that they were even in any kind of way referring to like a book cover. I mean, for real. And maybe even if they knew or did not know, but in any case, it's kind of like, yeah, it's like a real big deal. You know, with like a lot of information I'm looking at now, and have been for like years, really. But you know, the thing of it is that as far as venue goes, it's for performing. I mean, more than likely it will probably not necessarily be a nightclub, you know, in person. But, you know, the thing of it is that, you know, I'm really not thrilled about, you know, performing really anywhere where alcohol is served, you know. But, you know, I have my thing about that because I, you know, kind of already been through that anyway. But anyway. So anyway, yeah. So let's not think about that much about it anyway. So anyway, but when I realized, you know, something about the cover charge, it's like a common phrase at certain clubs. You know, it's kind of like it's kind of, you got to be kidding me, and it's like really that much about it. But anyway, it's kind of like it ultimately gets to, you know, what the cover charge is to maybe a textbook, or, you know, and it seemed to be the thing about whether or not and, you know, I don't know how true it is, but I don't know if it's a duration of intellectual, or what a duration means of what only identity might only present as maybe something as integration or compatible in a way, or practical application based upon principle. I mean, it's like a real big deal with, like, you know, alphanumerics and linguistics and a bunch of analytical stuff that way. And it seems to be like that rectangle of like the night vision on the Lincoln Continental being upright, you know, as compared to the horizontal, you know, the 1992 map. And something about the Bureau of Printing and Engraving that way, you know, identifying buildings normally with like granite rectangles, you know, of different lengths, you know, horizontally. normally it's horizontal that way, or rectangular in a way that would go beyond, perception of a square, or not too long that would represent maybe even a line. Okay, but anyway, yeah. So that's like a thing while going through the circuit. I mean, it's like really like a thing that really, really anyway I'm looking at it, because it's like something I'm really not ignoring because of the fact about the presidential administration through Lincoln of night vision, because of the Lincoln Continental and that rectangle, and the accuracy of night vision, the Richard Nixon thing about quite a bit, but in my mind, the quote unquote, or what that is to like the exponential quotient of variables of powers of multiplication as compared to the power square, and those seem to be like really the two that seem to be, I mean, it right now. Other than the thought of the absolute bars, and the algorithm going through algebra all the way through all the tech math, and how true it is. I don't really recall using the absolute values really, or geometry, trigonometry. Um, I really don't recall. I may be there, maybe I just haven't had the need for it, or something that might be considered maybe. I'll know when I know thing. But anyway, going through like geometry and trigonometry, but the algebra and introducing that algorithm, and what that is, going through the tech math that way, even through I'll only know of two levels of like calculus 1 and calculus 2, and how true if it goes any further, I'm not aware of it. But other than that, it seemed to be the deal about the powers of the absolute value of the two vertical bars that way, and the algorithm going into quantum, and that thing about there's like a Star Furniture here in Houston, different by design. It's like the E involving the structure of quantum of certain formulas in computation that way. There seem to be my thing about it, and certain factors involving what Japanese is alphanumerics is of like 7-1 and Paraland, or the thing about the structure itself, or reading vertically from top to bottom. And that was the thing about some of the structures of the formula in quantum that really, like, I was looking at, and I didn't even before then it was like I mean, I really wasn't involved, or at the time, anything before like June of 1992. I mean, I just really wasn't on my way with like starting my direction in alphanumerics, leading to the thing about the linguistics and further on. But anyway, yeah. So the thing about it is that that structure in quantum is like very similar, if not the exact. I'm actually trying to place the actual structure in the Japanese letter. How true it is, it all looks symbolic to me. But anyway, I mean, the structure is so very much the perception of like the Oriental, or if that's like an orientation based upon symbolic representation. Well, that's very much the thing about it. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, so it's like gets into that, and what it is with the absolute bars that way in the algorithm, and the barometric altimeter. I mean, GMC talks about raising the bars and what the barometric altimeter is. In my mind, of very many things really, and including that. But the thing with it is that it seems to be like the plateau seems to be the thing about that phrase in networking, not limited to likewise in addition a rainbow. In my mind, like a symmetrical asymmetrical deal of an identical twin rainbow of Saturn. I mean, ultimately it gets to the rings around like Saturn is really what I'm getting at. And I've been like really thinking about quite a bit about that here for the last couple of weeks. And in any case, so it's like the colors of the Saturn rings and the rainbows, like the colors of like color codes of like international electrical electronic engineering, and all the values with the color code that way. But anyway, I was like thinking about like all that really. So anyway, like I was kind of like thinking about that with the thing about the thing about the Saturn sky. Onion rings that way in between the governmental mainframe and the high silver thing. And my thing about the Lone Star deal about the flag itself as compared to the San Jacinto Monument, and what the real deal is, it seems to be like whether or not if the thing about the Lone Star is really not the deal about anything other than it's not necessarily the thought of a barometric deal about a memorial. Although I'm not real sure if the monument is considered only based upon practical application of principle as a memorial. But the thing about the memorial is, it seems to be like, it's like anything that's like on the surface, like a local area network, land, uh, hadn't really identified, anything special about like being on it, okay, or beyond the front lines of the beachfront, or even maritime law that way, or the deal about the Lone Star Flag or the San Jacinto Monument being the one star. I mean, it's like up in the sky, and what that is to airborne. I mean, really, even the book Seekers of the Temple, likewise, in addition, the Psychic Warrior, and the cover, with that guy like under the water, and the deal about the title, once again, the Psychic Warrior, America's Foremost Psychic Spy, and the cover up is the thing about it, the cover up of the top secret CIA Stargate program. I mean, the Lone Star, the monument, okay, and what the deal is like airborne as compared to what the book cover represents is the guy underwater, and the cover up. I mean, is ultimately. I mean, really, ultimately getting to the "In God We Trust" of the U.S. dollar. And what's the deal about the airborne? I mean, it's obviously the cover up of the book cover of Psychic War, and being the cover up being like, I mean, the baptism for real. Okay. Anyway, what that is. Beyond local area networks and land. And really what the airborne deal is about the symbolic representation on the backside of the US $1 bill, and ultimately getting to, the thing about it being airborne, and really what that one Lone Star, the St. Jacinto Monument is, as compared to if it, it's a dual deal about, it's in the sky, yet a memorial represents like a land, on the land. I mean, it's the surface thing about, I mean, like both the St. Jacinto Monument, but the stars in the skies is the thing about it, okay? Although it might be categorized as a monument as well as a memorial based upon, practical application of, principle and integration that way. But, what the deal is, it seems to be like a big deal, and, really about what I'm talking about, as far as like Saturn sky, and what the Corvette is to, I mean, that as well. And I've talked about that. I mean, I'm already going on like 22 minutes and 15 seconds right now. And I didn't even intend to go this far about it. But yeah, there's like a lot of information like I really look at when I like start talking about it on YouTube. Even if I like, briefly like just keep it as a note and even upload it to like YouTube or, place DirectTV, like direct it, with the content, in that way, and VSAT, like virtually automatically and all that stuff. But anyway, I was thinking about that because, of auditing like legal media and deposition in that way, because it seems to be like the San Jacinto Monument is like the big deal of now Saturn sky, being like, the difference between like airborne and being like stars born at the same time. So that's really the deal about symmetrical and asymmetrical. I mean, the identical twin rainbow, I mean, it seems to be like the deal about the plateau. I mean, it's not that it seems, all that stuff for it is written, I mean, you've heard it, religious venue, if you want to call it venue, you've probably heard it even in Christian Science as compared to what would be considered maybe a denomination, not really identifying themselves as like Christian Science. You would probably hear it more so with Christian Science than any other, that way. So anyway, the thing about it is, so like I'm like really thinking about the symmetrical, asymmetrical, and the pi squared, and exponential quotient involved in that Saturn sky is like a smaller version of the Corvette, and what the Corvette is, to the role of pen being the telekinetic, and all that pronunciation deal about the telekinetic, as compared to what that is to like Lincoln and pronunciation and kennel, what the kernel is about the country and the country and the county being the R deal, and applied to the pronunciation of Lincoln being like a kennel, or what the next kin is to the word relation between. I mean, the word is relation between architecture and platform of computer programming and language, and what the equator between all that representative. I mean, if it's going to be the deal about being above the equator, is whether a degree level is only opportunity, and opportunity not necessarily meeting the requirements of the degree level itself. I mean, if that's really all it is, of like a non-negotiable, non-transferable optimization, or barometric altimeter and condensing residuals, maybe even representing the thought of like neighborhoods in a way, of residential, or the thought of like the real deal and the experience of like a current residents, going beyond, and going through the deal about the hospital and the quarter, and what hospitality is with both, venue and pronunciation and all that stuff about ethnicity and yeah. So anyway, yeah. So I mean, yeah. So seem to be like a lot. I really get into the African American linguistics that way. But anyway, I think I kind of like slow down here and maybe take a break here in a minute. But I want to include that before maybe get serious about it because I'm actually thinking about the song "Wow" thing and using a little bit of about the Saturn sky and um, yeah, the Saturn sky thing about the onion rings in orbit. A little bit of humor about that, or maybe include maybe a little bit about night vision and oil, or something about 2020 and Barbara Walters and Hugh Downs, and what that is to oil or night vision in that way, or even the equator. Yeah, and ultimately getting to the Apple iPhone SE and pronunciation and language as a yes, or that's normally suggesting Spanish in a way. SE being yes, or the pronunciation of yes, YES in 49, and yay, the Lord and the pro, and the deal about the pronoun. And I mean it's really I can go on and on about it, but anyway, yeah. So anyway, like some of the information I'm thinking about, I might do a little bit more about the yeah but I have VSAT, da 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 da, yeah, but I have a Saturn sky onion rings in orbit for sure, da 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 da. Come on, I really can't believe it's better anyway, da 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 da. And my toilet doesn't require a root of habeas corpus, da 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 da. So I'm thinking about what you just heard and maybe really put some real brain work into it and see where it goes from there. Okay, there it is right there, yeah.